I distinctly remember the day it happened. I was at home, a friend of ours was staying with us, and his family was coming to visit. His mom specifically was coming to visit Cape Town. She lives out in the Karoo, which is a very dry, arid place in the Western Cape. She made these homemade terracotta pots, and in them were these succulent plants. And I just remember thinking, how have I reached my early 30s and never ever noticed these plants before? I was completely mind blown. And another friend of mine said, look, if you actually break this piece off and put it into the ground, it will grow. And that really blew my mind, and I think straight away that just captured my imagination. And then what was even more of a bonus was that I learned that these plants are extremely water wise. They come from a very dry, arid place, and at the time, Cape Town was in the middle of a massive drought. Day zero was approaching. It was quite a scary time in Cape Town, and not really the time to be collecting lots of plants, but my plants completely thrived in the drought. I didn't actually have to worry about them because they are so water-wise, and that's another beauty about collecting local indigenous plants. They are adapted to their environment, and yeah, every now and then we go through droughts and these plants totally survive. And that's when I just started deciding to just collect them. So every time she came to visit, I would send her a WhatsApp and ask her what has she got that's new, and I put in an order, and she just couldn't come to Cape Town without bringing me some new plants. I started hitting all the nurseries, and I started just collecting as many succulents as possible. I've got a very obsessive compulsive nature sometimes, so when I get into something I really go all out. My collection started growing very, very, very quickly, and I just assumed that they were all kind of roughly the same. And after a while I realized, okay, they're not all the same, they're all quite different actually, and they all require different ways of being handled, being treated. I just realized, okay, I don't know anything about any of these plants, even though I've completely obsessed with them. So I kind of hit a bit of a dead end, and I didn't really know what to do. I'm not really an academic type. I'm very much like a practical person, and for me to learn something, I need to physically do something, and then it stays in my brain. But reading a book, not so much. So the thought of me opening up a botany book and like trying to learn about all of these plants actually just scared the living daylights out of me, and I kind of just sat on that for a while. But I knew I needed to learn very quickly soon about these plants if I wanted to keep them all alive, because I'd now collected quite a lot of plants. And one day, another friend of mine came to visit, and we were going through all my plants, and it looked a bit like a coral reef. I used to call it my coral reef because they were all so different. And he just, as a joke, said, you should take a picture every day of one each day and post it on Instagram. And I just thought, that's silly, who's got time for that? A couple of days later, I was sitting at home, and I just thought, I had this black cloth from a film shoot that we'd done before. It was a very special black cloth that absorbed a lot of the light, and I went and put it on my camping chair, and I put the plant there, and I took a photo of it on black, and I thought, wow, that looks awesome, that really cool, and I loved it. So I thought, okay, well maybe I can make a little project for myself. I thought to myself, let me start a little Instagram account, and I'll call it Check My Plants. And I call it Check My Plants because whenever someone comes to visit me, the first thing I say is, come and check my plants. And I thought, okay, fine, I'll post a picture, but I won't be able to post a picture until I've learned the name of the plant and at least 2 cool bits of information. So it kind of forced me to go out and learn a little bit more. And I thought, where do I start? And of course, obviously the internet and Facebook, I found there was a lot of Facebook groups of all sorts of succulents, and so I would post a picture of the so-called succulent that I didn't know anything about, and then I would get an identification, and I started from there. Once I got an identification, I would go and Google, and I would read such cool, amazing things. I got so excited, and cool, I'd write my caption. I started sharing it. I shared 1 or 2 pictures. The feedback was really, really good. I wasn't even expecting anyone to even like it. I was literally just doing it for myself. And I carried on doing it just because I just got excited every time I put one of my plants in front of that black background and took a picture on my phone. I thought, wow, this is really, really cool. And I still remember one day driving, and a friend of mine drove past me, and he's like the skater guy who's got probably no interest in plants whatsoever, but he just stopped his car and he shouted out the car going, "I love Check My Plants." And I thought, wow, if he likes Check My Plants, that's quite something. That says quite a lot. And I just couldn't believe that so many people were so interested in this, and I thought, I knew it. It's not just me. Everybody loves these plants, and I was actually slowly but surely kind of achieving what I wanted to do. I mean, I think subconsciously I just wanted to show everybody what I was seeing and going, if you haven't seen this yet, then check it out and you're not going to want to miss out. More and more people started following me, and people really, really started enjoying my captions and my posts. And I was quite surprised about that, because I just didn't think that I would ever be able to teach anyone about plants, since I didn't know anything about plants. So I think one of the reasons why people really like my captions is because I keep it quite simple. I don't go too scientific at all, because I don't like to talk about stuff that I don't really know about. I just basically share the things that excite me, the little tidbits of information that excite me. For example, with the kokerboom, the bushman, it's called the quiver tree. It's a kokerboom. It's a tree aloe that's indigenous to South Africa, and I know that there's a rich history with the Khoisan, and they used to use these trees to make their quivers, their arrows, hence the nickname quiver tree. Another amazing piece of information that I love telling people is that I read this online, is that if they wanted cold water while they were out on their hunts, they would also cut down one of the branches of the trees, and they'd pour water through, and by the time it came through to the other end, it would actually be ice cold water. So it was their way of refrigerating their water. Other things like the impala lily, which you find all around the Kruger National Park, they used to use that to poison the fish, to help them hunt fish, just to stun the fish and slow them down, and they could easily catch the fish. For someone who's now become completely obsessed with plants, I'm living in the right part of the world. I live in Cape Town, where we've got the Cape Floristic region, and it's the most diverse of plants. We have the most diversity of plants in the smallest amount of space compared to all the other hotspots in the world. So growing up in Cape Town, actually, when I was a grumpy teenager, I took a lot of this fynbos for granted. It looks like this very arid, dry landscape. Fynbos means fine bush, and you know, the magic is actually when you look closer into the details and you see these crazy beautiful flowers that are growing like in what looks like absolutely nothing. And the other crazy thing about the fynbos that I've learned is that fynbos doesn't exist without fire. So we live in a part of the world where we have fires around Cape Town. I think the first time I moved to Cape Town, we had crazy huge fires all over Cape Town, and I was like, wow, what a wild part of the world to be living in. So I've got an amazing amount of subjects to shoot, and I just don't think that I'll ever be able to stop doing this. And the more and more I get into it, the more and more incredible people I meet. I meet aloe experts, I meet tiny succulent experts, I meet fynbos experts, I meet carnivorous plant experts, I meet plant restoration experts, which is one of my latest projects that I'm working on, which is photographing the top 20-30 plants going extinct in Cape Town, and we're going to hopefully bring attention to them and make people fall in love with them and want to help protect and preserve them. It wasn't until I decided to print this big kokerboom. I did it 1 meter by 1.5 meters, and that really opened my eyes into wow, this can actually go exponentially way further than I've ever thought before. And I didn't focus just on tiny little succulents anymore. I started going out, and I got a much bigger cloth, and I started photographing really, really big aloes. And I thought, you know what, I've always wanted to have, as a photographer, a solo exhibition, and for the first time in my life, I thought, this is it. I'm going to have my first solo exhibition. So I decided to crowdfund it. I kind of pre-sold each image and frame. So whatever was on the walls is what was sold, pre-sold already. And I landed up reaching 111% of my target market. which was beyond my expectation. It was quite a trip. Anyone who's done a crowdfunding campaign will know that that is quite something. I was really, really proud of myself. I can't believe how much I've actually learned. In fact, a lot of people start thinking that I'm a botanist, and I've got to quickly correct them that I'm not a botanist. But there are so many fascinating things about all of these plants that just capture my imagination and I think have captured so many people's imaginations. And I'm just so lucky to live in South Africa where we've got such a rich history with these plants. And to think, I mean, when I look back on this whole entire journey, I can't believe that it was just something that I wanted to do just for myself. I didn't want to do it for anyone else. It was purely just for me, so that I could learn, so that I wouldn't kill my own succulents at home. And still, big crazy things are still happening. I still can't believe that I've been featured on CNN. And now my favorite thing to do is just tell people about all of these plants. Often people ask me, how many plants do you have? And I've still never counted, but I've got definitely well over 300-400. And I don't know the name of every single one of them, but I know the name of most of them, and I know how to look after all of them, and I know now how to spread that knowledge, well, just the basics at least, with a lot of my friends. And who ever thought that I would be sitting underneath a cocoa worm doing a TED talk just because of photographing plants?